We start in Iran, where in gatherings in living memory, hundreds of thousands of mourners have packed the streets of Tehran to honour Qasem Soleimani, the Iranian military commander assassinated in a US drone strike on Friday. The country's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei led prayers during an emotional ceremony in which he was seen openly weeping. Just take you live to Tehran. Huge crowds there, possibly hundreds of thousands of people still out on the streets. Similar crowds turned out in other cities over previous days. Let's go live to Kabul to our chief international correspondent, Lise Doucette, who's there for us now. Lise, just looking at these crowds, it reminds me of the funeral for the spiritual leader of the revolution back in 1989.
Yes, they're now saying that this funeral is even bigger. Of course, when Ayatollah Khamenei died, there wasn't the internet, there wasn't the possibility to post videos for all of the world to see. There wasn't the possibility to have what we've been seeing ever since this 3-day procession in cities across Iran started, which is these drone shots which show the astonishing length of the crowd, miles and miles and miles of people, a sea of black. In some cases, you just go, it goes and goes and goes and goes and goes. And for Iran, of course, for Iran's leaders, this is not just a mourning ceremony. This is a hugely political statement. This is their first act of revenge. And Javad Zarif, Iran's foreign minister, who, like President Trump, often takes to Twitter, has directly addressed President Trump and said, did you see this? Did you see the sea of humanity? Look at this. In other words, look at what you have done. You have brought Iranians together. And there's been so much comment across social media. The protests, or rather the mourning, began in Khuzestan in the southwestern Iran, which were places where some of the protests against the Iranian regime, against people like Qasem Soleimani, for his foreign operations that were costing the Iranians dearly. Now those same people who were protesting, many of them are out on the streets, many of them saying that this is beyond politics. You have insulted our nation. And one of the things which has most galvanized Iranians was the tweet from President Trump saying we've identified 52 sites, including cultural sites. And there was a hashtag in which Iranians said, come out in support of our cultural sites. So every day that passes, the Iranians, whether they revere or revile the Iranian regime, are saying that this is a day that goes beyond where we stand on the politics. This is about all of us.
Well, just talking about the political fallout, we've seen that vote in Iraq, non-binding, of course, about kicking out the US troops. And just in terms of the avenging of this assassination, at least, even where you are could be affected, couldn't it, in terms of the Iranian influence in Afghanistan?
All of Iran's neighbors, including Afghanistan, where I am now, and in particular Iran's neighbors, including Afghanistan, where there are American soldiers, American bases, American targets. You know, I've been hearing from senior Afghan officials here who basically have gone out of their way both to basically try to have a balanced approach. They have expressed to the Iranian leadership. President Ashraf Ghani has spoken to President Rouhani of Iran. Senior Afghan politicians have also been expressing sadness and condolences about Qasem Soleimani's killing. Many senior people here have worked with him, knew him personally. But they have also made it absolutely clear that they will not allow Afghanistan to be drawn into this conflict, that they will not allow the American bases here, insofar as that is in their power, to be used for attacks against Iran. But people here are worried, but they're also even more worried in Iraq, where we have seen most of the tensions escalating and where, as you say, there was that really, really important vote in the Iraqi parliament. It was a complete, it was an overwhelming vote, 170 to 0, in the more than 300-member parliament. But many of the Kurds and many of the Sunnis stayed away, and it has to be signed into law through legislation. It's not clear whether that legislation can happen now because there's a caretaker government. But the caretaker prime minister, who was trying to straddle Iraq's relations between Iran and the United States, has been enraged by the killing of Qasem Soleimani and basically said bluntly, it's time for American troops to leave.
Lise Doucet in Kabul. Thank you very much indeed. As we've been speaking to Lise, we've been seeing mourners throwing the fabric at the coffins of the general and indeed another there, trying to dip their fabric in his blood because he's now been declared a martyr of the Iranian revolution.